One. Good morning, Judge. We live in a world where news is everywhere. Our phones, on the TV, but there's a problem all these news sources are having. All these news sources are fighting to be the first to report, although it often also means being wrong, and this has serious consequences. News organizations refers to trusted media sites, including news broadcasters like CNN, CNBC, and newspaper article sites like New York Times. These serve as primary sources to the wide public and prioritize means allocating more budget and editing space to slow journalism projects. Model. A propositions model will be hiring more experienced journalists, and a minimum of 60% of funding needs to go to these in-depth reports. While the breaking news will be labeled as developing or uncertain at the moment, which is a more accurate labeling, which I will explain later. To win this debate, we must prove that yes.
When the government itself may be responsible for the crisis, who tells the public before they cover it up?
So I think the news sources will be the ones that are telling the public that the breaking news will now be in a set area, and it will be the long journalism that will be allocated the most time. So moving on to my claim. So firstly, prioritizing slow journalism will combat misinformation as real-time reporting will have many invalid or vague information, making people feel confused. So right now, all the news outlets are racing to be the first one to be seen and to report. This means that they often report things that are basically not true. When for example, if someone is yes.
So more time means more accuracy?
Yes, more time does mean more accuracy, as there will be more accuracy than at least a small amount of time. Because even the best fact checker in the world cannot verify something that hasn't even happened yet. So real time reporting is basically I will do this first, and then it's meant to be incomplete. And even if you say that if we put more staff into the thing, it's not gonna change the fact that the eyewitnesses, they're confused, and officials, they don't have all the facts. So the more time does actually mean a better fact because of these little So coming back to my point, so slow journalism fixes this misinformation, as reporters have to check for facts. No, sorry. Reporters have to check for facts. They make fewer errors. Over time, people learn that they can actually trust these news outlets, and they will and they can So without trust, democracy falls apart. If people don't believe anything they read, they turn into lies and conspiracy theories, and slow journalism gives back this reliable reliable source of truth, which keeps the society stable and everybody healthy. Moving on to my second point, my second point is that slow journalism helps us understand what and like why and like when and like everything that's happening instead of just what is happening. No, sorry. So for example, real-time news might tell you like that something like this big football club is like shutting down or something, but slow journalism would tell you like this football club is shutting because like there's not enough funding and what's your PI?
Why is one potential misinformation worse than the public being unable to act before a harmful decision becomes irreversible?
Oh, so there will still be the sites, but like it's just not prioritized. So the public will know what is happening, but instead of all the sites being focused on this, we will then explain to the general public that there's like all these real like what and when it's happening. So all these good decisions basically come from this good information. So when voters understand this what's happening, like the football club not having enough funding, or like the football club the players are lack of interest, like everybody will act smarter, everybody will have reliable information, and this will benefit the overall society. So as a first proposition, I'm proud of the post. Thank you.
If I told you there's a tiger behind you, would you prefer to know A, know right now, or B, receive a beautifully researched article about the tiger next Thursday? For option A, so proud to oppose. I'm going to do four things in my speech then. First, on a bit of rebuttals toward their side, then on a bit of setup, then two arguments, first on corruption and action, and second argument on how news organizations lose relevance and influence. First, on a bit of rebuttals then. They have this really weird case where they say they're going to employ more experienced people. Our question is, how is this mutually exclusive? We're still going to have news. We're still thinking about it in the news organizations. So we're already going to have these kind of more experienced people. They're still going to be professionals in their area. They're still going to fact check every single thing, because the structural incentive is for them to check this kind of misinformation. I'm going to explain later on in my speech. But second, their whole case is about misinformation and how we say about like their football fields like shutting down or whatever, right? But I think the structural incentive of it all is that news organizations don't want misinformation. That is to say, they want to fact check to like a certain extent that proves that this information is correct, that the football field is actually shutting down or martial law was really declared. Because if they don't do that, it hurts their reputation. And what does news organizations live off of? Recognition and also the lack of misinformation, right? So I think at the point in which they just completely misunderstand what this motion is about, I think their side fails. But second, even if there is a bit more of misinformation on our side, we're still likely to concede to that point, and like we're still okay with it as long as we enable action. But on a bit of setup then, the question is whether slow journalism should be prioritized over real-time reporting. We say no, because news does not merely explain events after they happen. It is one of the only institutions that can expose abuse and prevent power-ups and pressure these kind of powerful actors while they're still making decisions. Our world keeps slow journalism. We still want investigative pieces and fact-checking or expert analysis or whatnot, but we do not make these things the default at the cost of live coverage. News organizations like BBC or CNN should report unfolding events promptly and clearly separate fact from allegation and deepen the story as more evidence emerges. The basic principle here is that journalism should not wait until the story is perfectly understood. If waiting gives the people responsible time to control, erase, and the story. The characterization isn't threefold. One, we acknowledge that proposition doesn't mean you don't have emergency alerts. That's just being very charitable, but it does mean that they don't have real-time reporting to the extent of opposition. For example, who's responsible for the crisis, discussion between authorities, what decisions are being made, etc. I think too, journalism companies are highly corrupted with money incentives and high-placed individuals controlling media attention, etc. And see, we still have professional journalism. It's just that it's delivered fast and more in breaking news style. The criteria here is, in most cases, timely information itself is a public good, and speed and accuracy can coexist rather than a trade-off. And two, the public in crisis and citizens scrutinizing the live power are served by real-time reporting that slow journalism cannot replace. First argument then on corruption and action, but before that, any POIs? 3, 2, 1. First, premise on how information is valuable because it allows people to make decisions. The value of information, therefore, depends not only on accuracy, also on timing. First, we want to point out beforehand that misinformation is very rare in the first place. Places like BBC and CNN have multiple checks and balances, and one inaccurate broadcast means that the credibility of the whole company, so they have a huge incentive to make sure that it's credible. Two, most important actions happen before we can actually be certain about anything. I don't know about this perfect world that government keeps on talking about, but in the real world, people cannot wait for complete investigations. Citizens have to decide who to vote for, whether to attend the protests regarding martial law, whether to evacuate from a school that is combusting or whatnot, long before all of the facts become available. This people need information while the events are unfolding. 3, delayed information loses most of this value. A perfectly researched article published months later can maybe tell us exactly what happened, but it often cannot change outcomes anymore. You can't unvote a president that has committed massive crimes like partying with Epstein on his island or reverse public harm. The window for action has passed. 4, timing matters because individuals make informed decisions on time. It's not just whether about a certain policy or action has happened and whether or not it's justified or not, but whether or not it happened or not matters. 5th, democracies require continuous participation. Propositions imagines citizens as passive observers who simply need the most accurate possible account of events, but democracies depend on the citizens actively responding to ongoing events. People need information precisely because they want to influence outcomes before these outcomes become fixed. This is what democracy is, right? B, journalism companies are highly corrupted. 1, they censor information because money is accepted by other power-placed individuals or lack of support from the company itself to focus on other money incentive news. 2, government needs to approve airtime, close reports, so if they don't match their preferences, we can't get good information to broadcast and therefore lose exclusiveness that eventually means the loss of profit. The comparative here is that we give society the ability to act. When citizens see the news, they can respond while the situation is still ongoing. They have the perception that, oh, I can change this. The impact then is in twofold. First, the proposition allows more corruption to happen, and second, it prevents corruption from being long-term. It doesn't let cleanups happen. Second argument then on how news organizations lose relevance and influence. The premise here is that news is the most important when it happens. 1, humans naturally want information. When a war starts or martial law is declared, people don't want to wait. They want answers now, especially in this interconnected world where everyone is used to, if you want the information, you can get it. This will be especially frustrating for the normal actors. Then, information vacuums are never empty. So the public in crisis and the citizens scrutinizing live power are served by the real-time reporting that slow journalism just cannot replace. Instead, people turn to real social media like TikTok or Truth Social. The important thing here is that actors have far fewer safeguards. So government keeps on talking about misinformation, but we still have professional journalism. That means we still have editors or whatever. Then attention becomes easily distractible away from certain problems easily. And fundamentally, accurate investigation does not mean a strong industry. So slow journalism accidentally strengthens misinformation because they turn to these kind of incredible social media. So this creates a giant gap in the market. So proud to oppose.
Imagine reading a piece of breaking news that just happened. It's really and you get confused and wonder, what does the news truly mean? What exactly happened? And what are the effects? Today, in this debate, I will prove how news organizations should prioritize slow journalism over real-time reporting for two core reasons. Now, before I move on to my arguments, I would first like to address side opposition's points. They claimed that people need to know what happened right away because they need to make actions, they need to prepare for it. Okay, now let's take them at their best case, which is that they're now, for example, there is a piece of news, which is that there's an Ebola outbreak in Africa, and the person, there are people living in Africa. Okay, then the people just learn that there's an Ebola outbreak. They don't know they don't know where in Africa. They don't know how. They don't know how much time they're given to evacuate. They don't know how many people have this symptom. So this is actually, so they can't do anything. They can't evacuate. They don't know where. Rejected, and please PYs in the chat. And they don't know where this happened. And on our side, even if it's after a few days, people won't get affected just the Ebola won't spread in Africa just for a few days, and people get actual information where they need to go, where they can't go. So this is actually much better. Now, moving on to my first argument on how slow journalism allows time for different perspectives and views to sink in. When people read the news, they don't just want to know what simply happened. They want to know how people such as prime ministers, the people affected by the event, etc., view what happened. This will help form their opinions because, so the people want a piece of news that promotes its verification and accurate information. A piece of news isn't just made for wanting people to know vaguely what happened. People want to hear the analysis and the true information behind all of that. Now, moving on to my second argument, slow journalism helps people to build their perspectives in an accurate way. As our first speaker stated, there might be invalid or vague information in real-time reporting because things are just in the middle of developing. So if they're misleading information, then people will have different views about what just happened. So people will likely to form bad opinions before they even know what exactly happened, which links me to first arguments because they want different perspectives. They want to know how leaders think about this. They want to know the true information to form their own opinions. So in conclusion, our side believes that news organizations should prioritize slow journalism over real-time reporting because of my two reasons on how journalism allows time for different perspectives and views to sink in, and also that slow journalism helps people build their perspectives in an accurate way. Thank you.
I think that the core premise and the problem with their side is that they don't explain how misinformation is spread. Okay, yeah, if you're trying to explain to me that slow journalism is supposed to combat misinformation, you have to first tell me an accurate representation as to why misinformation happens. And they don't, and that is why they lose. So how does it really happen? I think that it happens solely because of one reason. It is because at that certain time, if you aren't given the same amount of information, if you aren't given vast validity of information, you are more likely to turn yourself into believing social media, untrue rumors, or unvalidated rumors that will dominate within people because there isn't sufficient information that is fast enough. And that is why we say misinformation is spread in their side because there isn't as enough of people actively reporting things. There are more people who are most likely going to be relying on untrue rumors. That is how misinformation spreads in their case. We say that even in the first place, if it is true that you want to combat misinformation, then we say that sure, slow journalism can maybe do it well, but they also need also needs some sort of accurate representation, some sort of accurate source that they also need to do so that they can make their own investigations. And that needs to be fundamentally coming from a resource that actively investigated when that certain event happened in real time. You don't think that an investigation can be done weeks after that certain event simply happens. Then moving on to the rebuttals, I think that I only really have one rebuttal due to the fact that they ended their speech too early. So they said that they want to know about the analysis of hiring people to help inform their opinions. I think that there's two responses here. First, no, they want to know what happened so that they can act right away. Two, they don't want people to help form opinions. You want to form opinions on your own. That is why simply it is more important for you to deliver that such information before you giving your own opinions. And I think that's highly unfair for slow journalism to make their own opinions when they're highly corrupted, even in the first place, when we gave you the mechanisms as to why. Then what is the burden that we face? I think that's one simple thing. Why is timely reporting an indispensable function of journalism that should not be subordinate to slow journalism? I think it is because many of three reasons. A, people rely more on the event rather than the information of the event itself. This was explained by Haebin Chon. The people who need slow journalism are individuals who are highly incentivized to spread out exact information of events, such as lawyers or prosecutors. But an average individual wants to preserve their right to know rather than in complicated sense, right? Even the first place, it's not like you're going to understand every single form of the law that this certain slow journalism is going to provide you, because somehow slow journalism will provide you every single more adjudication to the reason as why this is wrong. No, you don't need to know. The complicated sense that you do need to know is what event just literally happened. That is to say, perfectly timed report delivered in days does not help making a decision in the current present of time. I think that this is the principal value that we're protecting, and I think that this is fairly you were willing to sacrifice some part of misinformation or whatnot for the simple value that you're able to know what is currently happening, because that is an informed decisions that people should be allowed to do. But B, I say that I want to tackle the point of misinformation even in the first place, because real-time reporting events actually cost less information in the short term and long term. Why is this true? Because of three folds. One, when a major event occurs, people have a demand to know what is going on. If professional companies delay info, then people will turn themselves into unreliable platforms, social media, or rumors of the current situation that are completely unreliable. Two, live broadcasting and fast reports make it easier for individuals to rely on a source that is more reliable, if not the same, that allows individuals to stop themselves from flooding themselves with misinformation. Three, slow journalism is able to conduct better investigations based on the live broadcasting that real life reporting has done, which is highly important because one, live broadcasting is very hard to manipulate because it does not require government permissions of airtime, and two, because it is a live recording of a situation that had happened in person, it is more precisely more accurate than other explanations that are given from anywhere else. That is why it's simply it is simply more better for you to prioritize real-time reporting events, because it not only does it give you better information, it also allows slow journalism that they're aiming to protect give better information. But see, I think that's because long-term journalism is highly and easily manipulated, and this is why we say that it's completely wrong for you to prioritize this. But before I move on, yes, I'll take the POI.
Can you explain how breaking news supports the people's understanding about the news?
Wait, say that again.
Can you explain how breaking news supports the people's understanding about the news and supports and helps people understand this news by
Cut you off there, because
really
no one-
knowing this news?
cut you off there. So basically, I'm saying that you're gonna know more because you're reported of it. It's simple as that. You're asking me whether how is news that is supposed to give information. News itself gives information. Why are you asking me whether this live reporting is supposed to give information or not? It states it in the name, journalism. I don't get what the point of this POI was supposed to be. Then why is it true that long-term journalism is highly manipulated. This is because of two reasons. One, like three reasons. No, four. One, long-term journalism means more time for elite individuals to have more preparation time to manipulate information, and this is true because you're highly money incentive as a journalist company because you have high amounts of power. Two, it makes it easier for companies to direct information because with an investigation can allow companies to assign people to different events rather than the current one that they started off of. This is because, for example, if a certain event happened that is also worth investigating, but suddenly the whole entire president decided to commit martial law, then it's easier and for companies, and it's actually money driven for companies to assign you to that problem rather than this certain problem. That is why it's highly manipulated. Three, more time causes live evidence that is one to be gone because you didn't check it at a certain time. That is to say, perseverance of essential information does not exist on their side. Lastly, even if we assume in their best case where they are capable of somehow doing accurate reports, Haebin already told you that you're gonna censor airtime by governments not allowing you to show this in live reports because they don't want you to know. That is why we say that it's simply just unfair for them to assume everything, such as accurate representation or whatnot, when it's not going to be even broadcasted even in the first place. That is how unfair and uncharitable their case is. More than to propose.
Believe that news is not only an event. News are things to help you understand the world, help you understand the society, help you understand what the conflict will lead to. Instead of only knowing the event, we believe that slow journalism helps you in a long-term impact. It helps you understand the news. It helps you predict what is going to happen. And as the third speaker, I'm going to prove to you that why our team win this debate and do a simple comparison to show that why their team lose this debate. Firstly, our team's burden is to prove to you that firstly, different views are beneficial and different views are in slow journalism. Secondly, slow journalism are more likely to be spread in a positive way. And thirdly, truth that is logical outweighs emotional but fast breaking news. Now moving on to my first clash. The first clash is about diverse versus monolithic thinkings. We believe that because no, we believe that because it is breaking news, it often happens when people are very emotional and people are more because it is breaking news. You don't have time to think in your own perspective. This actually makes you more easy to be controlled by the news reporter and not actually thinking what you really think about this news. Instead of only knowing this event and instead following what the news reporter's emotion, slow journalism allows you to think in your own perspective, allows you to think in more kind of views, and this is actually more beneficial than receiving a one kind of thinking because that more views allows you to see the real truth. It actually decreases discrimination in the news because if you only see in one perspective, you only know what these people think. You don't know what other people think. So this will be likely to cause discrimination and also likely to cause some untrue resources to spread some misleading information, and this is not that beneficial if it is in the news. Yes.
What is the benefit of you developing your expert opinion on COVID if you got infected because you visited China without real-time news?
If we believe that can you say that again? I didn't understand it very well.
What is the benefit of you developing your expert opinion on COVID if you got infected because you visited China without real-time news?
Because when you see this news, you will know that this kind of COVID is very harmful. And when you see the report gives you information. If it is a slow journalism, it gives you the information about COVID. So even though you get COVID, you can still heal yourself, find some place to go to the hospital and know how to be better during the COVID. So this is still very useful instead of only knowing that COVID come. Oh, so what? And you don't know what is the solution. You in your case, you only give them what it is happening. You do not tell them what should they do. People only know the event, they don't understand the event. And that's also related to my POI, which your teammate doesn't actually understand. And now moving on to my second clash. My second clash is which kind of views are more valuable: quick event versus understanding views. We believe that our opponent talked about how breaking news is helping it's giving us a short-term benefit. No, but actually, and they are talking about how long-term, slow journalism is long-term. So it means that you cannot do quick reaction. But actually, we believe that in their case, you only do reaction after the event. Even though it is breaking news, the event is still already happened. This means that you're being this means that you're being controlled by the news. You only do reaction after the news is reported. It actually means that you do not have your own thoughts. You just listen to the news. But in our case, which is slow journalism, you think about the news, you understand it, and you can predict what is going to happen because you understand it very well. And when other things that is similar to this news is happen, you can do quicker reaction. And so this is far more beneficial than what they are talking about in their short-term impact. Yes.
Breaking news is still also news. We have the facts of the case, like what COVID is, how many people are affected, and how to avoid it.
But you don't solve it. You don't know how like other countries solve it. You don't know. You cannot improve you cannot improve even though you hear this news. So it actually means that our team firstly gives you different views. Makes you different views means that you can see different you can know more things. You can do changes, and also we give you more information. You can predict what is going to happen. You can know better about what is happening, and you can also improve while you have more information because you know more about what this news is happening. And now moving on to my simple comparison. Before my simple comparison, I'm going to do out of class rebuttal. They talk about how our team is going to make more misinformation. But actually, we believe that this is the opposite. In their case, they are the one who are spreading more misinformation because you only give them the breaking news. You don't explain it. You don't let people understand it very well. This makes many people have different thinkings, and sometimes the different thinkings are wrong because you have a lack of information, and so therefore there are more misinformation in their case instead of our case, and our case prevent misinformation because we already gave you some information. So this means that we don't give you this means that in our case we don't have as much misinformation as their case. Now moving on to my simple comparison. We believe that comparing to their short-term benefits, we believe that long-term benefit helps you understand, helps you predict, helps you improve, and therefore for all of those reasons you are going to benefit more from the slow journalism. So please vote for protein. Thank you.
Real life reporting isn't just about football clubs going broke, like how proposition characterizes, but it's about the government censoring data and news, people not knowing emergency decisions and not being able to take action, and eventually losing autonomy as a whole. That's why we are so proud to oppose. Three things in my speech today: firstly, on extraneous rebuttal; secondly, on the clash on misinformation; and lastly, the clash on the long-term impacts. The best thing, so first on extraneous rebuttals, opposition prop talks about how in our side will have emotional, not rational decisions, but we want to point out that the panic that people will experience is quite neutral. But however, in our side, it's educated panic. In proposition, people, exactly using their logic, how people will manage to make their own decisions. This is exactly why it's problematic, because they will also make rational decisions. So using their own logic, you directly, this problem is mutual. And second response to this, breaking news initially is information bias, not interpretation. For instance, when there's COVID-19, breaking news will probably there's a virus called COVID-19, so to be like careful of something. But I do not care about the medical details of how COVID vaccine works, and debate on whether what type of vaccine is the best or something. I seriously do not care about that. I just want to live, right? I want to know that it's COVID, it's a virus, I need to be careful. That's all I care. So the natural response is there. For instance, there's going to be low risk protective actions, for instance, like wearing masks or checking on family members or specific areas or following updates. This will naturally exist in our side. And secondly, journalism does not have to tell people what to think, unlike how they characterize in their side. Journalism is not there to replace individual judgment, but on specific data and specific analyzations. These are the reasons why we still stand. And lastly, there are ideal react better in their side. Why is this not true? For instance, if you are in a school shooting and then you hear sirens, you hear the police, you hear gunshots, and you witness the event, and there's literally nothing you know about that event, that increases panic. This flips their whole idea. Because of this panic, because I know something is going on, but I don't know what that exactly is, because of these create rumors and conspiracy theories, which actually make their problem worse. That's why we pick their point on like emotional reaction, which was our worst case. Before we go, any POIs? Going once, twice.
Oh, so just now you said about the vaccine and how you just want to know about the vaccine and then you'll take protective measures. However, if you don't know how to take this protective measures, or won't long-term things help you learn.
Okay, so trying to mitigate the point, because if there's a virus, we eventually know that we need to avoid certain areas, we need to wear a mask. That's basic information. And secondly, even if you assume that you don't have that information, it's worse in your side, because people are dying off around you. People are suddenly having like 40-degree fever, and you don't know what's causing that. Obviously, you think of something crazy like black magic. It's a witch. There's a witch or something. That's your conclusion, okay? Going to the second clash then on misinformation. South Korea's President Yoon declared martial law a few years back. The broadcast told this information until a few hours after the declaration. After that, the media was filtered, and the only thing on the news was about football, the so-called football, and not the declaration. Imagine if that broadcast waiting confirmation. That means nobody knows the fact, and there's not going to be any protest, no action at all, and it will remain forever censored. And I wouldn't be here right now. So even if misinformation does exist on our side, it's worth the sacrifice because we let immediate action take place, which we have emphasized throughout our whole case. Proposition might say though, oh hey, but wouldn't it be better if we explain to the general public later in a much more detailed and rational manner? First of all, is it possible to explain? No, we have pointed this out to you multiple times. There's going to be a longer research process that means more interference. And second of all, it's way too late. When you have no action to help it at all, there's no corruption broadcasted at all, Proposition's response is, hey, I don't know specific action to take place. For instance, they give an example on Ebola crisis in Africa. Our worst case is just broadcasting Ebola, be careful. This is our worst case. But this means that people know to wear a mask, not to get out, and be careful. However, if you broadcast exactly nothing, every day people will die, people will fall ill, and eventually every daily consequences pile up, and it leads to a lot of sacrifices, and the consequences are huge. So let's weigh the vague ideas versus detailed reports later. Our worst case is that people will rise to unnecessary panic. We're being charitable here because I'm criticizing my own case because they did not. First of all, mitigation. Good outlets say, hey, it's unverified, it's yet to be confirmed. This means that panic comes from rumors. And B, let's flip this. Why is it bad? Because of rumors form better in their side. For instance, again, use that example in Ebola they love. So if my neighbor suddenly falls sick, in their side, they don't know the, and they'll just think, oh my god, it's a pandemic, we're all gonna die, it's dark magic or something. That's what they're gonna think. But in our side, we at least know the cause, we at least know what's going on, even if it's really vague. And lastly, helpless panic will exist in their side, because even if we have panic, it's reversible. For instance, there can be corrections and clarifications on news outlets, but in Proposition, it's irreversible. Why? Because evidences are destroyed. People who are crucial and who know the truth are arrested. Elections already happened, and now it's irreversible. For instance, let's again use a reference on Korean martial law. The opposing party official was and sent to prison right after the martial law and was prevented from entering the building at all. But why is it temporary in their side? Because the government normally have scandals stored in them to divert attention. So you can use that in your side, but you cannot in our side. And lastly, let's flip on misinformation. Because you rely on private, unreliable media such as TikTok and Instagram, as people, as Kayden already mentioned, that's why we win on this clash. And lastly, going to the small clash on long term, I don't think we heard like a minimal engagement in this clash in our previous speaker. But even if there is detailed interpretation and information later, and which is somehow not censored and somehow managed to become accurate, we still win. Why is this? Because as you already point out in your own mechanization, the event already happened, and it's the reaction only happens after the news. Exactly. If your news comes 3 weeks later, there's absolutely no action during that span of 3 weeks. And during that 3 weeks, if it's an Ebola crisis, if it's COVID, people are gonna die off. If it's a war, people are gonna die off. If these kind of pandemics still exist during that 3 weeks, and there is absolutely no response to that. That I'm still using their own mechanization, their own way to prove themselves, using it in our case for our favor. So in the 3 weeks, people died, and the government controlled, and now it's censored. And we already told you why this is so bad, because even if there's misinformation, it's reversible, because you can just say, oh, hey, it ain't that like it's serious. Oh, the casualty numbers aren't clearly identified yet. But in your side, during that 3 weeks, things happen which are irreversible, like the government taking over, like they become a martial government, or all the data's being gotten rid of, and all of these, because of all of these and the metric on all the things that I mentioned previously, proud to oppose.
The greatest ally of corruption has misinformation. It has always been time. Time to destroy evidence, time to coordinate stories, time to pressure witnesses. Government gives powerful people exactly what they want. More time. So proud to oppose. I'm going to go over 3 clashes that are found in this debate. First on misinformation, accountability, and corruption, then what journalism is actually for, then go on to some pieces of meta debating. The first clash that we found is misinformation. Propositions tells you if we slow down, that equals to less misinformation. Opposition, we already told you. First, we still have so many safeguards regarding misinformation. The news organizations itself have an incentive to get rid of misinformation because they rely on credibility. And second, people still fact check individually to check the news. And 3, we still have professions handling it. We're not some TikTokers tomfoolering around. Second, we told you that if you have more time, that actually gives more time to look into these social media, which is far less credible in the very first place. Because when people are curious about an event, like they hear these gunshots going around, they're not just like, oh, maybe that happens. No, they want to know about it. And when traditional news cannot meaningfully give them an answer because they're still investigating about it, then people still go to these social media like Instagram or Twitter or things like Truth Social if that gives them the answer. That consequently gives much more misinformation. Opposition never responded to this. We win first clash. Second clash then on accountability and corruption. Proposition just assumes that the news organizations have no corruption and governments are gladly just like thinking of only the citizens and their well-being. But we tell you that there is actually corruption. And what does corruption need? They need time. So timing matters because it gives powerful actors more time to destroy evidence, to coordinate stories, to pressure witnesses, etc. So, and if we assume corruption, even if we assume the panic, we at least react in some way. This is better than absolutely no reaction, as we've already told you from first speaker. For example, if it's not martial law that they reported, martial law, so people want to protest. Then I have the thing, like at least I did a protest. But what if it was real? What if the government had really decided to do that? Then it's worse, it's irreversible. On the most important metric of irreversibility, we've already told you we win this and the debate as a whole. Then third clash on what journalism is actually for. This is our most charitable clash. The proposition tells you accuracy and literacy. Opposition, we already told you, first on literacy. 1, people prioritize surviving over literacy. As Kelly told you from her speech, I do not care about whether or not what type of vaccine is the most effective for autistic and ADHD people. I don't care about the science about viruses and how genetics and DNA works. I just want to survive. 2, nobody will care in the first we tell you from first. People have too short of an attention span to actually read the 30-page reports. And 3, we still have slow journalism to an extent because this is a prioritized debate. This is where you can actually get the literacy stuff if you really want it. Then on accuracy, I think we already prioritized, we gave you why professional actors and safeguarding methods work. And second, we said we are willing to sacrifice some accuracy, being very charitable, because we want people to act now. Then on some meta debating. 1, we already know we've won this debate when our whip had to make up rebuttal ourselves because proposition didn't. 2, they don't respond to a case about how slow journalism is highly manipulated. I think that even if they don't want to accept this, they have to because it's their burden to prove why people will feel better and with so-called mistrusted information. And 3, I don't think they have certain value that they protect. We gave you the principle of right to know that we are willing to take as a fundamental value and our hill to die on, but they are giving no absolute value for their team stance, and there's simply no trade-off they are making. They are so uncharitable. So
judge, opposition, and everyone here. My partners have given you clear cases which the opponent has tried to destroy. However, I'm going to show you why our side wins through a stakeholder analysis. Firstly, the ordinary citizens. So through the real time the ordinary citizens such as you everybody and people who are not in the news world, they can be stressed by constant alerts. They are and in like real-time news. However, in slow journalism, they're calm and in control and they know what to do. So also they in real-time news they are confused by changing all the changing stories, everything. There's like from social media websites they know something, from the other one they from the news websites they know anything, and they'll be confused. However, in slow journalism, we'll show everybody the full picture, full accurate and like everything. And the impact of this, which is that slow journalism gives us peace of mind and reliable information, while real-time news just gives us panic and yeah. So the winner of this stakeholder is slow journalism. Secondly, the second stakeholders are the journalists or the news workers. In real-time news, the journalists are more burnt out and like exhausted, and they make mistakes, and people attack them for it, and like. However, in slow in that which is the world in real-time news. However, in the slow journalism world, people are given time to investigate properly. They get fewer errors and earn respect. And talented people want to join the thing and join the workforce. As a result, slow journalism creates better and happier journalism, while real-time news just burns them out and then pushes them away. So the winner of this stakeholder is slow journalism. So to rebut something that the opposition has said, they said that if news organizations slow down the pace, people will just go to social media, which is full of lies. So slow journalism makes the misinformation worse. So I will why this is this is not going to be happen. So right now, real-time news outlets, they rush to post like random unverified rumors. So and then social media looking at these things, they spread them to millions of people, and this is basically the wind that's like spreading the fire, and while the news outlet is the fire itself, it's the one that starts the forest fire itself. So by slowing down news organizations, they stop supplying the misinformation, and there's no credible sources to back these like these social media sources. So as a result, as because of these points, please vote for
proposition.